Então, aqui a gente está para fazer o lançamento do livro O Fim do Envelhecimento. É um livro que já tem tradução para muitos idiomas, né? Você já tem para alemão, para espanhol, francês, japonês, italiano, agora para português, além da edição original em inglês. É um livro de 2007, né? Que foi feita a primeira edição. E aí, ao longo dos anos, foram feitas as edições nos outros idiomas. Então, agora sai em português, italiano saiu dois anos e pouco atrás. Por quê? Porque as previsões que ele foi fazendo do que ia acontecer foram acontecendo. E só agora começam a ser feitas muitas das coisas que ele tinha sugerido fazer. Bom, então eu queria pedir para o Aubrey para explicar um pouquinho para vocês um pouco sobre o livro e eu vou traduzindo. Tudo bem? So Aubrey, can you explain a little about the book?
Well, I think so. So, the book, Ending Aging, and I am not going to try to say it in Portuguese, it describes my understanding of how we could bring the problems, the health problems of old age under real medical control. So when I say real medical control, I really mean that. I mean the same amount of control that we already have today over most infectious diseases. And the reason I make this comparison with infectious diseases is because it's really the best way to get people to understand that aging is actually a medical problem at all. If you take yourself back 200 years, 200 years ago, infectious diseases killed a lot of people really early in life. I mean, literally, more than 1/3 of babies would die before they reached their first birthday from things like tuberculosis and diphtheria. And this wasn't even a wealth problem. This was in the wealthiest countries in the world. And now, in most countries, hardly anybody dies that young. So you may wonder what I mean by bringing aging under proper medical control. That's what I mean. I mean having almost nobody get sick just because they were born a long time ago. So, of course, the question you will all have is, how can this be possible? How can we even think about that, since aging is so universal and inevitable? And this book tries to explain that. What I try to explain in this book is a dissection of aging, an explanation that aging is not some mystery. It is something we understand. Now, of course, understanding aging is only the first step. After we have understood it, we need to figure out how to manipulate it. And one thing we absolutely need to acknowledge from the beginning is that when I say we understand aging, we only understand it a little bit. So, the big central thing that underpins what I do and what this book says is that that's okay, that we can manipulate aging even though we only understand it a little bit. Very often, scientists do not understand that fact. They think we need to understand things really thoroughly before we can manipulate them. But I am a technologist. I understand that we have good opportunities to manipulate nature even though we do not understand it very well. So, 20 years ago, I started to do this for aging. I started to put together a plan for how to use what we already know, or at least what we could probably know quickly, in order to manipulate aging really well. And I described that plan in great detail in this book, back in 2007 originally. So you may think, well, why should this book be interesting now if it was written so long ago? But actually, the fact that it was written a long time ago is precisely why it is so important now. Because the ideas that I described in that book were very controversial back then, but they have stood the test of time. They are still consistent with everything we know. And now, many other people are saying the same thing that I said a long time ago. It has become a mainstream, orthodox way of thinking about aging and about how to address aging medically. So I am really happy that these ideas are being spread to in other languages by Nicolas and by other people, and that more people are being exposed to this way of thinking, because it is now the right way, it's now recognized to be the right way to think about aging and how to keep people healthy late in life. Any questions?
Ok. Agora, o Aubrey explicou um pouquinho sobre o livro. E eu, para aprofundar um pouquinho o tema, eu gostaria de fazer algumas perguntas para ele, para até trazer temas atuais, né, que estão acontecendo aí no mundo, né, da ciência. E aí o Aubrey vai poder aprofundar um pouquinho para vocês. So, Aubrey, I will ask you a few questions, okay? Well, primeira pergunta. First, I will explain the question and then for you, right? A primeira pergunta que eu queria fazer para ele é que, assim, para o público em geral, né, para todo mundo, é muito importante que os remédios, as terapias de rejuvenescimento não sejam uma coisa difícil de encontrar, cara demais, ilegal. O que tem que ser você vai no médico e o que você gosta, confia, o médico faz uma receita, você vai na farmácia e tem o remédio e você toma. Porque se isso não acontecer, o povo em geral não vai tomar, vai ser uma ou outra pessoa. Então, quero informar vocês, porque é uma coisa muito recente, que uma semana atrás foi divulgado o resultado dos testes clínicos em humanos nos Estados Unidos de um medicamento que elimina as células senescentes, de uma empresa que chama Unity Biotechnologies, e foi a fase 1. E para ser aprovado nos Estados Unidos precisa de 3 fases, 1, 2 e 3, foi a fase 1. E a empresa divulgou os resultados, né, o pessoal comentou, né, nos sites especializados, mas como o Aubrey é um cara que falava dos senolíticos quando quase ninguém falava, eu acho que não tem talvez ninguém melhor para ele, em primeira mão, explicar para a gente o que ele acha dos resultados divulgados há uma semana pela Unity Biotechnologies.
Okay, so first of all, let me clarify why Unity Biotechnology is such an important company in this space. For many, many, many years, there has been a lot of interest in companies that are trying to bring aging under some kind of medical control. But everything that has happened in the past has been about slowing aging down. Unity are the very first company whose focus is on actually reversing aging, on repairing the damage of aging. Now, my work, starting from 20 years ago, has focused on the idea that reversing aging, repairing the damage of aging, may actually be easier than slowing aging down. Now, it is easy to persuade people that, in principle, reversing aging would be far better than just slowing aging down, but it's been very hard to persuade people that it is possible. So all I could do 20 years ago was to give arguments, to give logic. But what Unity set out to do was to provide data. And even before they had data, or when they only had data from mice, they were still able to raise a huge amount of money. And that's good, but it also gave us a potential problem. Because if that money ended up being lost, then, the whole idea could be set back. So, this first clinical trial that Unity did was incredibly important. It was a phase 1 trial, and that means that it was supposed to be looking only at whether its drug was safe, not whether it was working. But, as often happens, they did look at whether it was working, and it turns out that they got really good results. So I believe that the results that were announced just last week from this trial will be a huge step forward for rejuvenation biotechnology in general and for the medical control of human aging.
Bom, então, vamos para a próxima pergunta. Eu vou perguntar para ele sobre uma outra empresa que chama Aubrey, que ela tem uma outra estratégia para anti-envelhecimento, porque a Unity, que é a companhia que estamos falando, ela tem uma estratégia para eliminar as células senescentes. Tem uma outra empresa que chama Aubrey, que também é para células senescentes, mas é uma outra tecnologia. E então eu queria perguntar para o Aubrey se ele tem ideia de quando que, por exemplo, tanto a Aubrey quanto a Unity vão conseguir colocar esses medicamentos no mercado, né, pelo menos dos Estados Unidos.
The whole point of doing clinical trials is to find out things that we don't yet know. So right now, all I know is that it's a very good thing that there are several companies out there pursuing different ways to get rid of senescent cells. So Unity have particular small molecules that seem to work fairly well. Ocean have a genetic approach. Senolytics have an approach based on enzymatic release of cells. There's a lot of different ways to kill senescent cells. And it doesn't matter which of them works. All that matters is that one of them works fairly soon.
Bom, a próxima em relação a um medicamento. Na verdade, não é exatamente um medicamento, mas ocorre que esses testes clínicos dessas empresas, eles demoram muito. Então, pode demorar 10 anos, né? Até mais, especialmente se dá errado. Mas muita gente não tem a oportunidade de esperar tanto tempo para saírem os medicamentos no mercado, porque, sei lá, isso é aprovado nos Estados Unidos, até chegar no Brasil, 10 anos, 15 anos. E tem alguns medicamentos que estão surgindo que têm efeitos senolíticos. E são medicamentos que já são liberados para consumo. Um deles é a fisetina. Fisetina, ela, nos últimos meses, vem ganhando algumas notícias que mostram que, em testes com ratos, ela consegue eliminar as células senescentes, os ratos, né? E é um produto que se vende praticamente livremente, né? Então, eu queria perguntar para o Aubrey, que tem pessoas tomando, né? Se você entrar nos fóruns da internet, tem pessoas tomando fisetina. O que ele acha? Se é recomendável para quem não pode esperar 10, 15 anos surgindo os medicamentos, se ele acha recomendável tomar a fisetina.
So, at this point, the research into the effect of fisetin on aging is very new. There have only been a few papers published. At the moment, it seems that fisetin is a very promising way to eliminate senescent cells, and it also has a very good safety profile because it's a natural product. So, I am not a medical doctor. Therefore, I am certainly not going to make any recommendation about what people should do. But I certainly can say that it's very important for more research to be done on fisetin as quickly as possible.
Bom, próxima pergunta é em relação ao câncer. Porque no livro Fim do Envelhecimento, o Aubrey explica que quando ele bolou o plano das SENS, ele nem colocou uma estratégia para o câncer, porque ele achava que alguém ia descobrir alguma forma de curar o câncer, mas que os anos foram passando e isso não surgiu, né? Não surgiu a cura para o câncer, e aí ele elaborou uma terapia de última instância. Se ninguém conseguir encontrar uma cura para o câncer, a gente retira a telomerase do corpo, faz uma reposição periódica de células-tronco e, bom, a gente aí pode vencer o câncer, mas os custos físicos disso são muito altos. É uma terapia de última instância. Nos últimos meses e anos, o Aubrey vem dizendo que pode ser que essa terapia de última instância não seja necessária, porque as imunoterapias contra o câncer estão muito avançadas e pode ser que elas consigam fazer isso sem a terapia WILT, que é a sigla em inglês, né, que ele coloca. Então, eu queria perguntar para o Aubrey, para ele explicar um pouco disso, né, porque é um assunto que afeta quase todo mundo, né?
Yes. So, 17 years ago, when I was thinking about cancer, I came to the conclusion that it was extremely hard to come up with a therapy that would be really universal, that would really address all cancers. And the only thing I could do was to control telomere length. So, briefly, when cells divide, the ends of the chromosomes, which are called the telomeres, they become shorter, and cancers only kill us because they figure out a way to compensate for that shortening of the ends of the chromosomes. But the method that I developed, that I proposed for addressing that, for stopping cancers from keeping their telomeres long, was very elaborate and very ambitious in terms of avoiding side effects. But even 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago, some people felt that maybe we might be able to bring cancer under control using the immune system. But it wasn't happening. There was almost no progress in that research area for decades. So I was paying close attention to that research area back then, but I didn't have any real optimism that it would ever deliver results. But that all changed, maybe 6 or 8 years ago, and it's carried on changing. And now, the idea of cancer immunotherapy, using the immune system to eliminate cancer, is a really big deal. Now, we're not there yet. Some cancers seem to be very susceptible to the new modern version of immunotherapy. But at the moment, a lot of cancers are still not susceptible to it. So we must continue the research. Maybe we really will still need the telomere-based approach to cancer that I thought we would need 20 years ago, but maybe we won't.
Bom, próxima pergunta é em relação a... tem uma nova área da ciência do rejuvenescimento, que é a reprogramação celular parcial, que os cientistas pegam uma célula e retrocedem como relógio biológico dela, mas não a ponto dela virar uma célula-tronco total, mas só a ponto dela rejuvenescer. E eu gostaria de saber do Aubrey até que ponto isso se relaciona com as SENS, né? Que tipo... SENS são as estratégias do Aubrey para reparar os danos do envelhecimento. Até que ponto essa nova estratégia de reprogramação se relaciona com as SENS?
So one of the 7 strands of SENS, the 7 types of damage that we need to repair, is the loss of cells. And that specifically refers to the loss of stem cells, because stem cells are the cells that make other cells. So the question then becomes, how can we restore the number of stem cells in the body, or in particular parts of the body? And the obvious way to do that is just to inject new stem cells into the places where they are needed. But if you do that, you have to make sure that those stem cells are going to work. For example, they could be destroyed by the immune system of the person into whom you inject them. So another idea is to try to take cells that are already in the body but are not stem cells, and to take them backwards through their development so that they become stem cells again. Several years ago, people figured out how to do that reasonably well. It's like, a bit approximate, but it was a good first step. So people got very excited. But there's a problem. If you are doing this to cells that are in the body, then you are going to be doing it to cells that are not in the right state to become stem cells again. And the biggest problem is that some cells in the body, in everyone's body, even yours, are nearly cancer cells. They have a lot of mutations that could make them cancerous. They don't have all the mutations that make them completely cancerous, but maybe they have most of those mutations. And cells like that, if you try to make them more stem-like, that may actually make them more cancer-like. So if we want to do this, we have to figure out a way to stop that cancer problem from happening. Now, one group that I work with, a company called Age X, has a very clever idea for that, and I think it could work. But even now, we still don't know.
Bom, agora eu vou fazer uma última pergunta para o Aubrey e depois a gente vai abrir para quem quiser fazer perguntas para o Aubrey. Tem nos últimos anos, o Aubrey ele ajudou muitos cientistas a abrir empresas de biotecnologia, ele transferindo patentes, né, patentes da fundação dele, ajudando a conseguir recursos de investimentos, né? E eu li num artigo que o próprio Aubrey ia abrir uma empresa da fundação dele, focando na aterosclerose. Mas eu li em algum lugar. Então, agora que eu estou aqui do lado dele, eu posso perguntar.
Sure. So, we are a non-profit. We are a charity based in California. And so all of our funding comes from philanthropy, from donations. But our business model, our way to justify our existence, is that we do research on projects until they become investable, until it becomes possible to create startup companies that can attract investment to take them to the next level. And that's a really important part of what we do, because it's much easier to get much larger amounts of money for a project if the money is actually an investment, where the person who's giving the money has the possibility to make it back later on, than it is if it's purely philanthropic. So the company that you are talking about is our latest spin out. It's called Underdog, and it is focusing on a new way to address atherosclerosis. And it's raising money right now. It only needs to raise about $4 million to get going. We already have 2/3 of that. We have $2.5 million. So it's looking pretty good.
Bom, gente, agora queria abrir para quem quiser fazer alguma pergunta para o Aubrey. Quem quiser pode levantar a mão.
So, I mean, I have an open mind. I am totally interested in hearing any new ideas about how to keep people healthy when they get old. But I haven't heard any good ones for a long time. So, if you have a specific idea for how to do this, then you're totally welcome to send it to me by email. My email address is very public. And I'm sure you will get a nice, polite reply. But until then, I don't have any comment. All right. I want to give a kind of multi-dimensional answer to your question. So, first of all, let us ask the question, is aging a disease? Lots of people like to say that I think that aging is a disease. In other words, they like to say that I think that the definition of the word disease should be broadened to include aging. And that annoys me quite a lot, because what I actually say is the exact opposite. I say that the definition of the word disease should be narrowed so that it does not include things like Alzheimer's or atherosclerosis or most cancers, things that are the age-related so-called diseases. So the reason I say that explains the second dimension of my answer to your question, namely the question of whether aging is a medical problem. This biologically unjustified classification of things like Alzheimer's as diseases is what allows people to think of other aspects of aging, like, frailty, as kind of off limits to medicine, when in fact they are just as much medical problems as Alzheimer's is. So that brings me to the final dimension of the question, which is perhaps what you were really getting at, the regulatory aspect. Now that is an area which finally is going away, especially in the USA, which is the country that matters the most simply because it is the biggest market and therefore the biggest determinant of incentives for Big Pharma. So the huge advance that happened about 2.5 years ago was that a clinical trial was approved by the FDA to study aging. Now, they didn't use the word aging, but it was still aging because the clinical trial was defined in this very complicated combinatorial way that meant it was aging in all but name. Now, that trial hasn't even been funded yet, but that's fine, because what matters is the definition of the trial, not the result. There was also another huge thing that happened less than 1 year ago, which was that aging was included in the new version of the ICD, the International Catalogue of Disease. And they did it very sensibly, very cleverly. They did not include aging as a new category. Rather, they included it as what's called an extension code, a qualifier of categories. So in summary, it's a huge problem, but I think it's mostly gone away now. Okay, this is going to be a long answer. And the reason is because there are so many things that people can do in Brazil, and different people can do different things. So one thing that people can do, obviously, is to spread the word, to get people to understand things more. And Nicolas here is doing that very, very well. But there's only one Nicolas. We need 100,000 Nicolases, right? You can all do advocacy. You can all do it. Then, of course, you can do investment. So one of the most active investors in this space right now is from Brazil. A pretty young guy. He doesn't have as much money to spend as some of the investors that I speak to from the US, but he has some, and he's really using it. Then, of course, there is the science side of things. So there are many great scientists, great institutions in Brazil who are doing great biotech work. If you are working in such an institution, or if you want to, then you can work on research that is relevant to rejuvenation. Now, of course, one thing that I have not said is what you can do for your own lifespan in terms of lifestyle or diet or supplements. And the reason I haven't mentioned that is because it's not very useful. There is almost nothing that we can actually achieve. We can only get a very small amount, if we're lucky, from that kind of thing. So it is very important for everybody to understand that the main thing you can do to increase your own chance of benefiting, of staying healthy for a long time, is to speed up the research that's being done to generate new therapies. People often think that my view of aging is very different from Ray's, but actually it's not very different. So most people say, well, hang on, Aubrey doesn't take any supplements or anything, and he says that supplements are more or less useless. And Ray takes 150 supplements a day, and he swears by them. What's going on there? But actually, when I say that supplements and lifestyle and so on are more or less useless, the thing is, I'm only talking about average people. And Ray is not an average person. Ray is a very unlucky person. He started to get type 2 diabetes in his 30s. And that was what began his development of his strategy for supplements. So I'm totally in agreement with him that unlucky people have the possibility to improve their chances, to make them more average by things we can already do today. All I'm saying is that people who are already doing fine or doing averagely well, and especially people who are doing better than average, like me, for their age, we do not have much chance of gaining anything more by stuff that's already doable today. And as for more future technologies, the things that Ray described as Bridge 2 and Bridge 3, on those things, Ray and I are almost in complete agreement. All right. First of all, we don't know how soon these technologies are going to come along. So, as I was saying earlier, anything you can do to make them happen sooner is better. If you're wealthy, write me a large check. If you're not wealthy, then the less wealthy you are, the more people you know who are wealthier than you. So that's what I was saying about the absolute essential role of advocacy. And again, it's easy to think, well, Aubrey de Grey is out there giving all these talks and interviews, and he's really good at advocacy, so I don't need to do it. But that's not true, because some people don't listen to me. I do the best I can, but some people just don't listen to people with beards, or they don't listen to people who are aggressive or whatever. We need diversity of messaging. But actually, I want to give an additional answer, a very different answer to your question, which is, I really think everybody who wants to not die and wants to stay healthy a long time should be looking very seriously at cryonics, at cryopreservation. This is a science of keeping people alive when they are legally dead that is really realistic now. And it's going forward rapidly. Just the same as rejuvenation biotech, cryonics has a long way to go. There are still huge improvements that we need to make it work well, so that people are preserved well enough that we have a realistic chance of reviving them in the future. But it is already realistic. So this is a huge area right now. So many people researching it. Now, for sure, it is not the Holy Grail. It is not going to be the central core. The reason we know that, the reason we know that is that the body can already create NAD, it can already metabolize NAD, so changes that happen with NAD during life are responding to other things that are going on. Which means that if we manipulate NAD without doing anything else, then we know that we are only really papering over the cracks. But papering over the cracks is still a good thing in the short term. So I'm not against it at all. All that I want to make sure of is that people understand that it is only papering over the cracks. Okay, yeah. So
Sorry.
NAD, it's a small molecule in the body which is used as a kind of reservoir of electrons. It moves things around within metabolism. It's a really fundamental molecule in metabolism, and it exists all over the body, and its concentration changes with age. Right. The best way to answer your question is to answer another question first. Namely, why does aging only make you sick late in life? Why are, 50-year-olds almost as functional as 20-year-olds? People often think, the body has some ability to keep itself under control, to repair any damage that happens until middle age, and then suddenly it loses that capacity and things start to go downhill. And they kind of think it's magic, that this, someone blows a whistle and it all starts to go wrong. And I mean the word magic. People just don't ask that question, what blows the whistle? I mean, what the fuck? I mean, that's so crazy, right? So, of course, something is actually happening before then. So what actually matters is that there are certain changes to the structure and composition of the body at the molecular and cellular level that are happening throughout life, even starting before we're born. And the only reason that we don't notice them until middle age is because the body is set up to tolerate a certain amount of those changes. So really, this is what aging is all about. That some side effects of our metabolism are created rapidly, such that if we did not get rid of them, we would die before we had kids. And that would be evolutionarily undesirable. So everything that the body does that's bad for us quickly, actually isn't bad for us at all, because evolution has created compensation, has created repair mechanism, which means that the only things that are actually bad for us are things that are bad for us really slowly. So slowly that evolution doesn't care. But still, they're happening throughout life. And they are what pulls that trigger late in life and starts us to go downhill. Yeah, no, there is absolutely no way that any complicated organism like human beings could simply eliminate aging by a simple mutation. The reason we know that is because we know that aging is not caused by genes that make us age. Rather, it happens because of genes that we don't have. Every aspect of aging is the accumulation of some kind of damage which is created as a side effect of our normal living, and in principle any type of damage could be repaired by genes. But we have to evolve those genes. And as I was saying to this guy a moment ago, we do not have enough pressure, because evolution is perfectly happy to pass on genetic information through reproduction rather than through individual longevity. But I also want to give a second answer to your question, because you mentioned at the beginning about movies. So, as you say, there are many, many movies that explore a post-aging world. And of course, also before movies, there were many science fiction books in the same area. And pretty much all of them made it look like a bad thing. So, Logan's Run, like everybody gets to die when they hit the age of 30. Or there's, more recently, In Time, where you die if you run out of money. So what's going on here? These movies, they do really well at the box office. Why? Now, to me, the answer is clear. They do well at the box office because people like to believe that aging is a blessing in disguise. There's no other reason, right? I mean, these movies are obviously completely crazy. They start by assuming something that's obviously not true, like, for example, we will have too many people. We will have an intolerable overpopulation problem. Now, let me ask you all a question. I just said that the overpopulation problem is obviously not true. How many people agree with me? All right, so at least half of you disagree with me. At least half of you think that there might actually be a really bad overpopulation problem if we didn't have aging. Now, here's the thing. I've been explaining why that's obviously not true for about 15 years on global media. What the fuck? I mean, it's not like I've been going out and explaining this and other people have been coming back and saying, no, your explanation is wrong. Nobody ever does that. Ever. They just come back as if I had never given an answer in the first place. So this is what brings me back to the movies. People want to believe that defeating aging would be a bad thing, because that allows them not to get their hopes up.
Mas eu quero perguntar para ele sobre isso da superpopulação. Aubrey, can you explain to them, because eu vi muitos vídeos ele falando isso. Why do you think overpopulation won't be a problem in a post-aging world?
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So, for the 1,000th time, the main reason why we know that it won't be a problem is because overpopulation is not a problem of space, it's a problem of pollution. As of right now, we have only 7.5 billion people. That sounds like a lot, but if you ask how many square miles of land there are on the planet, you will find out that there is quite a lot. So it's all about pollution. The only reason we have a problem is, climate change and so on. And that's all in the process of already being fixed by technology, by renewable energy, artificial meat, desalination, all these things that are already coming, that will be established and universal way before the defeat of aging results in any kind of significant demographic change. Yeah, so I'm not trying to pretend that I know the future about how people are going to think, how society is going to work. All I'm saying is there are certain things that we really do, really know about the future. And one of them is that at no point in the future are people going to want to be sick. Another thing we know about the future is that progress happens, that things that are already happening in terms of other technologies, whether it's automation or renewable energy or whatever, they're going to carry on happening. And it turns out that that's all you need to work from in order to reject pretty much all of the objections that people have in this space. In particular, it's extraordinarily popular to think about a post-aging world that's the same as today in every other way. Like no automation, no renewable energy, and so on. So again, what the fuck? Yeah, the only explanation is that people don't want to believe that a post-aging world could be a good thing.
Bom, gente, acho que é isso. E agora a gente tem os livros aqui, afinal de contas é um lançamento de um livro. Quem quiser que o Aubrey assine o livro e comprar o livro, fique à vontade, fazer uma filinha aqui. Certo? Obrigado, Aubrey. E é isso aí.